A couple years ago, due to the increasing use of zero tolerance policies in CPS and throughout the states of Illinois, Voice developed our Common Sense campaign to work to bring solutions and end the school-to-prison pipeline. Through our campaign, we developed Senate Bill 3004. This bill prohibits disciplinary fines and fees to stop schools from making profits on young students. Out-of-school suspensions and expulsions and alternative disciplinary replacements for minor offenses, and also counseling out and transfers as a method of school discipline will be structured. In the case where suspensions are needed, schools must supply work and give students the ability to make up tests that they missed so they don't get off track. I'm in my senior year of high school, and I began to lose count of how many students have fallen behind in school because of the misuse of suspensions. In my sophomore year, a group of juniors, 7, were outside the schoolyard play fighting. The police officers thought that it was a real fight, despite that the students telling them that they were all friends. And they was just playing, and they were arrested. And on top of being arrested, they were suspended for 10 more days when they returned to school. Without any makeup work. I think that it's important to the state that all students that were arrested and suspended in this incident were African American also. Because of this horrible experience, they have fallen almost 3 weeks behind in school. It is a fact that African American students are the ones that suffer most from zero tolerance. We need change. If we change the system, we change the future.
This bill is extremely important because it will begin to help to stop school-to-prison pipeline. It will help keep students inside of school where they belong, instead of pushing them out. Schools are supposed to open doors to a brighter future, not to a prison cell. We are here today to hear from students and allies to fight to make our school and safe and end zero tolerance policies. We are all here to show everyone that our bill, SB 3004, makes sense and is needed. We are all calling on our legislators to support SB 3004 and to help change futures of the students of colors like myself. So, whose schools?
Our schools.
Whose schools?
Our schools.
Whose schools?
Our schools.
Thank you. We will now hear from Hyro from Logan Square Neighborhood Association.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for being here, first of all. And well, my name is Jairo Nunez, and I'm with Logan Square Neighborhood Association, and I'm a proud member of Voices of Youth in Chicago Education. When Voice first started, we had a big question. Why? Why do so many youth drop out of school? Since then, we have learned a lot about the students, a lot about what they go through in school. The status quo is 800 suspensions. 800 suspensions every day. 800 students pushed out of school every day. Instead of learning by teachers, instead of getting their education, they're learning in the streets. And when they're in the streets, everyone's at risk. We've learned that once a student is suspended for the first time, they are more likely to be targeted. They are labeled. For this and many reasons, we need to pass SB 3004. For the first time, they are more like, sorry about that, so that we can see common sense discipline in our schools. When I was a freshman at Amundsen High School, I was sent home for wearing shorts. That ain't right. When I was 14 years old, I got in a fight and got suspended for 5 days. And they just sent me home. They didn't ask me what was going on. They didn't care. They just sent me home. Suspensions doesn't help. They didn't help me. It didn't help my behavior. My sophomore year, a teacher reached out to me. And just by speaking, my suspension's lowered. I didn't really get suspended after just talking to someone. So that just shows that suspensions don't help at all. Zero tolerance is reality. In schools, we get suspended and sometimes arrested. On the streets, we can be killed by police. Everywhere, young black and brown students turn, and we are at risk. For almost a year, we have been negotiating with different groups to come to an agreement about how we can best support students and keep them in school. SB 3004 does just that. This bill will keep students in school, but the opposition haven't been interested in negotiating with us. They haven't been wanting to compromise. Some have even denied there is a crisis. They act like everything's okay, like there's no problem. The Illinois Principals Association, the Superintendent Association, and the Chicago Public Schools are the groups that insist everything is okay. And it's not okay. They are the ones that don't believe there is a crisis. I have one question for you. Do we have a problem?
Yes.
Are we the solution?
Yes.
Is SB 3004 the solution?
Yes.
Then we're gonna fight for the solution, right? Now, whose schools are these?
Our schools.
Now, today we are sending a strong message to our opposition. Wake up. Take note. We will not back down until we pass SB 3004 on our terms. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Hyro again for his speech. When I say student, you say power. Student. Power. Student. Power. Student. Power. Now we will have Brandon Johnson from CTU.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Johnson, and I am a proud teacher and proud member of the Chicago Teachers Union. Thank you. And on behalf of President Karen Lewis and the 30,000 members that make up the Chicago Teachers Union, we stand in complete support of these young people, and we call on the General Assembly to pass Senate Bill 3004. The managerial practices of using these awful, dramatic, punitive practices have caused tremendous pain and anguish across this city. But it also speaks to a deeper problem that exists across this country, where nationwide minorities are suspended substantially higher than white students. That's a problem. And the discipline gap continues to increase over time, where CPS has had the highest suspension rates in big city school districts across this country, where nearly 15% of students in Chicago public schools have been suspended. What's even more disappointing and dramatic is that 1 out of every 4 black boys have been suspended by this system. As a teacher, as a father, it's an offense that this system here in Chicago and school districts across this country are sending a clear signal to black boys that their lives do not matter. But on behalf of the Chicago Teachers Union and the teachers that make up this district, we stand in complete support of this legislation, and we declare that black lives do matter. Yeah. We're in a system where black boys in particular only make up a quarter of the public school students, but overwhelmingly make up those that are suspended. This is a problem that one of our students mentioned earlier. that there's also an issue with police incidents on campus. In 2010, nearly 6,000 students were arrested on school campuses. 75% of those students were black. This disproportionate attack against black students using the suspension model and arrests on campuses is something that is not only detrimental to the educational development of our students, but it's a detriment to the fabric of our communities, where we know that students that are suspended are more likely to have a run-in with the penal system. The school-to-prison pipeline is a crisis, and shame on the institutions that do not want to accept the fact that we have a real problem where students of color, particularly black boys, are disproportionately impacted and affected by these draconian policies. It's time to pass Senate Bill 3004. During a time in which we know, after a national study actually came out and indicated that black students are actually perceived as older. And black students are more likely not only to not have an experienced teacher in front of them, but they're more likely to be suspended. This is a national problem that is playing out across this country, where black boys are seen as a threat, whether they do something inappropriate, whether they're unarmed, that the open season against black boys in this country has to come to an end. It's time to pass Senate Bill 3004. What has become very clear is that as a school teacher, and as a young man mentioned earlier, that each and every day students come into our classrooms with wounds, with struggles, with pain. And instead of dealing with those wounds, the struggles, the pain, the poverty that many of our students have to endure, this system would much rather throw them out and suspend them than have a simple conversation with them. A simple conversation that could change the course of a student's life. We're asking for something very sensible and reasonable. We're asking for a law that would actually treat our students with dignity and respect. To see the humane aspect of their existence. And that when students are inundated with crime and violence and poverty, these struggles are real. And it's about time that the state of Illinois not only pays attention to these struggles, but actually properly support them so that our children can thrive in a way that makes their future possible, not detract from their future. What's actually troubling too is that, and I'll close with this, is that we see a system that is profiting and benefiting from the privatization of public assets. Because the suspension rates are even more dramatic when you look at schools that are privately managed and run, these charter schools that have a higher suspension rate than public schools within Chicago. And this is a problem. And it's a problem because what we should be talking about is full investment in our students. And so what is the Chicago Teachers Union calling for? Not just the passing of this legislation, but we need the resources to ensure that students have school counselors, nurses, psychologists, psychiatrists, people that can be an asset for our students. Not more police officers, but more nurses. Not more police officers, but more social workers. Not more police officers, but more counselors. And so it is my honor and privilege to stand before you as students today, as a teacher, to support this legislation. And I stand with you, and we say fight on. Whose schools?
Our schools.
Whose city?
Our city.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Brandon from CTU. We would now like to welcome Esmeralda from Communities United.
Hi, my name is Jamie, and I'm going to be speaking in place of Esmeralda because unfortunately she couldn't be here. We are calling on the elected officials to support our bill, SB 3004. SB 3004 is a concrete solution and will drastically improve the lives of African American and other minority groups throughout all of Illinois. Stand up if you support SB 3004. Stand up if you support improving the lives of minorities in our schools. Make some noise if you believe that Illinois needs to pass SB 3004. Everybody make some noise!
All right, thank you, Jamie. We'd like to thank everybody for coming out, and we will be taking questions off the mic. Yeah, follow us on Facebook at Voice Project, and follow us on Twitter at Voice Project also.
Yeah!